Alright, so we're gonna do this movie called ICU. It came out in 2019. Holy shit. So we got this husband and wife named Jackie and Greg, and they got a son named Connor. Right off the bat, you feel the tension between Connor and his mom. Turns out we found out that mom cheated on Greg with some dude, and she's been paying for it ever since. So we get this scene where this kid, who we learn his name is Justin, is just riding his bike, gets snatched up out of nowhere. The thing is, they were able to find his bike, but never found the body. But when they look in the grounds for evidence and stuff like that, they ain't really find nothing at first. Now, Greg is working with this dude named Snitsky. They're both detectives. The person they work for, the police chief, is actually the girl that played Max in Living Single. Yeah, Erica Alexander. So anyway, they go over to the campgrounds again, and all of a sudden they find this green knife. Now, why is this so goddamn serious? Because there was a guy by the name of Cole Gordon, and this dude ended up killing like 6 different boys. The thing was, that their bodies was buried, they were all buried with green knives. Like green pocket knives and shit. But the thing is, Cole Gordon is locked up. He's basically been locked up for the last 15 years. He ain't going nowhere. So do we got a copycat killer running around? So Greg got into an argument with his wife while she was at work at counseling. He ended up throwing his phone through the window. He's like, shit, I gotta get it repaired. Now at this point, nobody's home. All of a sudden, Jackie comes home. When she comes upstairs, the repairman's already in there. She's like, what the fuck? So he's basically repairing glass or whatever. So when he's finished his work, she asks him, like, did my son let you in the house? He was like, no, I think your daughter did. She's a nice young lady. And we're like, what? You thinking to yourself, it ain't but them 3 in that house. Greg, Jackie, and Connor. They only have one son. Then we get this one scene where Greg is asleep. All of a sudden, you see the cover being pulled off. I'm like, who the fuck is doing this? He wakes up the next day, the bed's all wet and shit. He thinking to himself, a grown man pissed on himself in his sleep. Like, really? He puts the sheets in the washer and, you know what I'm saying, he's about to go to work. So apparently after the repair guy left, Jackie was out to fix some stuff. She's like, what the fuck? Like, did he steal some of our furniture? I mean, our silverware? And he's thinking to himself, who the hell would steal our dirty ass silverware? And all this at the same time, Justin is still missing. His mom's been doing press conferences and everything, trying to get her son back, you know what I'm saying? But they don't even have a clue to where he could even possibly be, other than finding his bike in the forest. So we get to the scene where Jackie gets a knock at the door, and it's this dude named Todd. Now, who the fuck is Todd? Todd is the side dude she was smashing while she was with Greg. He's talking those goofy ass shit, talking about, I'm so in love with you, you can't do it. She's like, yo, you can't be doing this shit. All of a sudden he gets hit by a random ass mug. You're like, where the fuck did that come from? Now there was a scene earlier where Greg had went into Connor's room or whatever like that, and out there you already seen like some cigarette butts in an ashtray. You're like, the fuck? So he's thinking to himself, Connor's probably been smoking on the roof and drinking whatever he knows without that mug. So the mug is hitting Todd in his head. He's like bleeding bad. Jackie takes him down into the basement to, you know, clear his head up, whatever like that, try to get stitched up. So while Jackie went upstairs to get some stuff, but she had went somewhere. Now at the same time, we see Connor upstairs. He's like brushing his teeth or whatever like that. So we're thinking to ourselves, did Connor really throw that mug out there? So Connor's like, what the heck are you talking about? And he generally looks confused. So bottom line, she's supposed to be taking him to school. She didn't want him going by himself, obviously, because of the kidnappings and the missing Justin and all that stuff. And she wants to get him out the house because, you know, Todd is down in the fucking basement. So while she's doing all this, Todd is feeling all kinds of woozy or whatever like that. It looks like he's like looking to a pantry trying to find something. All of a sudden he gets smacked with something. He's done deal out here in these streets. So after she dropped off Connor at school, whatever like that, she comes back and finds Todd done deal dead as shit. So she called Greg. Greg's like, what the fuck? So the crazy thing is she thinks that Connor possibly did it. Talking about he's so angry at everything, you know what I'm saying, angry at his relationship, whatever like that. But then I'm thinking to myself, you just took him to school. What the fuck else could he have done? Did she think he just bled out or something? I mean, like, so now Greg's thinking to himself, he doesn't want his son going to jail for nothing. So he's like, look, we got to wrap this body up and bury that shit. And that's what they do. Now, as a cop, obviously, that's very immoral. But at the same time, he don't want his son going to jail. So there you go. I'm still trying to figure out how could he even do it when he was driving with his mom to school. Like I said, again, maybe he just bled out or something. I don't know. So while they're burying this dude at nighttime, Connor's back in the house. And he's just in the room playing video games and whatnot. Then he gets his messages on the computer talking about, you know what frogging is? Like, what the heck is frogging? Spelled P-H. And then he gets some videos sent to him. Now, the video's got this guy running around the house. He checks downstairs. He doesn't really see nothing. But he's hearing this clanking noise or whatever like that. Now, the laundry machine is going, right? And inside the laundry machine is like all the fucking utensils and shit. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing in the laundry machine? Well, at least we know the repairman didn't steal them. So he goes back to his computer. He starts watching more of these videos. It turns out there's somebody in there tampering with stuff. You can see this guy with a frog mask on, taking the silverware, putting it in a bag, and then throwing it in the laundry room. We're like, what the fuck? Then all of a sudden, the dude in the frog mask is right behind him. He doesn't even know it. I'm like, oh shit. So then the parents get back to the house. Jackie goes upstairs. All of a sudden, she starts screaming. We're like, what the fuck? We see Connor. He's all tied up in the tub, all drugged up and shit. So we're thinking to ourselves, what the fuck did this guy do to him? So basically, Jackie's going to take her son Connor to the hospital. And Greg's thinking to himself, he knows somebody's in here. So he starts checking around the house. All of a sudden, the record player starts playing a song called A Man on the Frontier. This song is perfect for this scene, honestly. So he goes over to the recorder. He's about to cut the song off. All of a sudden, we do a dude in the mask, and he's got like his axe. And right before he's about to swing, it cuts off. We get the scene where Greg is like leaving for work, but somebody else is in the background recording. Once he's leaving, the garage is going down. These 2 kids sneak inside of the house. So we're like, who are these fuckers? So apparently these two kids are named Alex and Mindy. Now basically what they do is because they're homeless, they're called froggers. They're basically jumping from house to house. So they find the perfect places to hide out within the houses for like 4 or 5 days, and then they switch to going to another house so they don't get caught. Now Mindy was doing the session while Alex was recording. So we found out Alex was the one that answered the door to the repairman to let him in. Now there was this scene where Greg was chasing this gerbil because Connor has the gerbil or whatever like that. He was trying to get him back in his little hut or whatever. The gerbil goes into the closet and somebody locks Greg in the closet. So at that point we thought it was Connor, but when he finally opens up the closet, Jackie's at the door. And he thinks Connor was playing around, but Connor wasn't even in the house. Turns out what really happened was Alex was on a rampage. He was the one that locked Greg in the closet, but then he had to hide under the bed. Now this scene almost had me fucked up. Now, he's hiding under the bed with this frog face mask. But there was one point in time where Jackie was talking to her son Connor, and she looked under the bed and seen his frog face, and then she just came back up and was like, all right, good night. At that point, we know Alex was under the bed. The thing was, there was a blanket under there, so he was able to cover his hands and everything like that. So all she saw was the mask. Crazy. So basically, Mindy's trying to chill out, but Alex, the one just wants to cause ruckus. So the scene where Todd got hit by a teacup, whatever like that, Alex is the one that threw the teacup. The cigarettes and everything, Alex is the one smoking out on the rooftop. The scene where Greg thought he peed himself or wet the bed when he was trying to throw stuff in the laundry. Turns out Alex is the one that was pissing on him. Now, Mindy's tripping off Alex for good reason because you think to yourself, if we get caught, we're going to go to fucking jail. We can't just be breaking in people's houses and shit. She's trying to be cautious and Alex is trying to have fun. So now here comes some serious shit. It got to a point where a lot of things happening and they couldn't really hide in the pantry like they were hiding before. Now, when the teacup was thrown, that's when Connor heard it and started going up the steps. That's when Alex and Mindy were hiding. But the thing is, Mindy had to somehow get down to the basement because apparently they left their bag in the basement. Why, if they were sleeping in attics, I have no idea. But anyway, she goes down in the basement, and this is where the shit jumps off. So when Todd was looking for the equipment or whatever like that, and he got knocked out, turns out he got hit by a baseball bat. Now, at this point, you thought Alex was the one that did it. Turns out it was actually Greg that did this shit. What? How did he know to come back to the house? Well, apparently he was looking for some information or whatever like that on some kids or whatever. You know, the investigation stuff and whatnot. And he just happened to see Todd in the house and just beat the brakes off his fucking head. I'm like, damn. So Greg killed Todd. But that's not even half of this shit, yo. You gonna trip. Now, of course, Jackie had came home around that time. And Greg, of course, was acting like, you know what I'm saying, we don't want Connor going to jail, knowing damn well we know now that he was the one that actually did it. The crazy thing is, Mindy was hiding down there that whole fucking time. So she saw all that shit. Now, at one point in time, Alex had drugged Mindy because she was getting freaked out by all this other craziness. He was like, yo, you just gotta chill, man. But when she was dealing with the repairman, that's when Alex had drugged her or whatever like that with a canteen of water. So he could go downstairs and cause all that mischief, pissing on people and doing all this kind of craziness. But once she's seen all the stuff that happened at the basement, she's like, yo, I can't go through this, man. This shit's too dangerous. Now at this point, everybody was out the house and he's like, yo, Alex, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And they're struggling, going back and forth, whatever like that. She accidentally falls down the steps. And we were like, holy shit, is she dead? But she's just knocked out for a little bit. So he picks her up and they go into the garage. He's about to put her in the car or the garage or whatever like that, right? So he's trying to start the car. He can't start the shit. All of a sudden the garage starts opening up. He's like, oh, fuck. So he ends up getting out the car and the parents are coming back. Now at this point, they're coming back from when they just buried Todd. So Alex is still hiding somewhere in the garage or whatever like that, right? So now while they're in the house, this is the point where Jackie finds Connor all tied up and drugged up and shit. So while Jackie's taking Connor to the hospital, Greg takes the other car. But the crazy thing is, Mindy is knocked out in the backseat of the car. So at this point, Alex is thinking to herself, what the fuck am I going to do? All right, here comes some crazy shit. Mindy ends up waking up in the car or whatever like that, right? And like Greg is just driving, but we see him just driving to like this forest area or whatever like that, right? So there's this bag in the backseat of the car where the bat is, and she starts opening up the bag. She ends up finding Justin Witten's jersey in there. I'm like, what the fuck? And ends up finding a bunch of green knives in there. Holy shit. Greg is the real green knife bandit, yo. So basically, Cole Gordon was framed 15 years ago. That's crazy. So the thing that he got put in there for was, you know, messing with boys, killing them, raping them, all types of shit, right? But it turns out it was really Greg doing all that shit the whole time. So when in the forest, she somehow finds a way to escape or whatever like that. She actually tries to call the police on her phone that she has or whatever, but the phone signal keeps fading out in and out. And then all of a sudden, she sees this cabin. She goes inside of this cabin, right? And they got these two closets, they're locked up, but they can't, you know what I mean? There's nobody can get into them, whatever like that. She keeps hearing noises like, hey, someone help us. And it's two boys that are in the fucking closet, yo. I'm like, yo. So she's about to help him, and all of a sudden, Greg is right behind her, done deal, about to put a plastic bag over her head, and basically knocked her ass out and put her back in the trunk. So as he's digging through her stuff, he ends up finding his camera. Now, the camera had the documented footage of what they were doing while they were in the house, so Greg knows it's like, oh, shit. He knows at least two people been in the house, so he doesn't know who the other person is, but he knows for sure it was Mindy and somebody else. because the other person was holding the camera. Obviously, we know it's Alex. So basically, he's going back to the house. Alex is still hiding in the garage the whole freaking time. He basically sees Greg carrying Mindy as he's coming out the garage, so, we already know what's up. He gets on the bed, she finally wakes up, and he tells her to stand up. And then he ends up putting 2 on her chest. Done deal, dead as shit. She survived death so many times in the movie, but she ain't survived this. Then he shoots the wall a couple of times and then puts the gun in her hand, obviously to put, wipe the fingerprints off so it could be like, oh, this was a suspect. She broke into my house. So then we get this flashback to these 2 boys that were missing that were playing on the train tracks and whatnot. And as Greg and Snitsky was going back on the tapes, one of the boys was explaining what happened to him in this situation. And at that time, we thought they was talking about Cole Gorman. He even explains how the guy would be missing, like he's like magic. You'll never find him, you'll never catch him, anything like that. It was just a weird explanation of what the boy was telling. And at that point, you could tell he was sexually assaulted by this guy. So then we get back to the house and we basically get to the scene where Greg is cutting off the recorded player. And as we can see, Frogface, or aka Alex, is the one that's coming at him with the axe, and then they're going back and forth, and they didn't really hit each other, but he ended up smacking around Alex. I guess the gunner got knocked away during a battle or something like that. So I guess now he's about to implement his plan to make it sure like Alex is another guy that broke into the house. But the thing is, Alex ended up finding the gun, because he had walked away from him and came back and didn't see him sitting there. I'm like, oh shit. Alex ends up putting 2 of them, done deal. Greg's dead as shit. And then Stitsky comes out of nowhere. He didn't even think twice. He just bangs off in the shoulder. I'm like, oh, snap. And then as he's turning around, he's looking at him. He says, Detective Stitsky? I'm like, how the fuck does he know Stitsky? So we get the scene where Jackie and Connor then came back from the hospital. All these police around. Greg's dead as shit. They find the evidence and all that stuff in the back of the trunk. But before all that, the police ends up going to the woods of the spot where they thought Mindy was at. They saw the cabin and released the 2 boys that was trapped in there. One was some random boy. The other one was Justin Whitman. As the medics tend to Alex, who apparently was still alive, then they showed this flashback. They showed the flashback to the boys that was skipping on the train or whatever like that, and they got stopped by this dude. Turns out the dude was Greg. Turns out the boy that made the call in back in the day was fucking Alex. That's right, Alex knew exactly what house he was hitting. Yeah, Alex, for him, this was not just jumping from house to house. This was planned. But in the process, your little girlfriend Mindy died because of this shit, sir. Yo, all I can say is this movie was fucking nuts, yo. I see you on Netflix. Check it out.